Good afternoon. If we could get started, please. I used to be an elementary school principal, and that is the quickest anyone has ever gotten quiet. Good afternoon, and welcome to today's launch of the Connecticut Workforce Partnership Initiative. My name is Dane Lynn, Senior Vice President at the Business Roundtable. For those of you that don't know, the Business Roundtable is an association of CEOs of America's leading companies who are working to promote thriving U.S. economy and expanded opportunity for Americans through sound public policy. The Business Roundtable's Workforce Partnership Initiative is one example where CEOs are focused on tackling skills development challenges and driving economic growth around the country. We have three goals, pretty straightforward. One, accelerate access to competitive, ready-to-work learners with in-demand skills. Two, create high-performing industry higher education partnerships. And three, expand business commitments to hiring and upskilling with a focus on diverse, traditionally underrepresented populations in the workforce. I want to emphasize the upskilling. We talk a lot about recruitment. We talk a lot about talent acquisition, but we have a lot of individuals who work in our companies who want to stay in those companies. They don't want to leave, but the economy and the rapid acceleration of technology at all levels, I think, requires us to really rethink how we reskill those individuals, not so that they can just keep their job, but so they can also take advantage of opportunities for advancement. I often call it better jobs with better pay. We've had some great success to date, including the creation of 12,700 apprenticeships in this country and the hiring of individuals with an average salary of $48,730. More broadly, under the leadership of Mary Barra, the CEO of General Motors and the chair of the Business Roundtable, the Corporate Initiatives Group was launched in 2022 to develop and implement private sector initiatives with a particular focus on workforce development. With the participation of over 60% of our members, the Corporate Initiatives Group has effective efforts underway on skills-based employment, apprenticeships, diversity, equity, and inclusion, second chance hiring, and building out a cybersecurity talent pipeline. Would encourage you to take a look at our website, the different initiatives, the companies that are involved, and what we're trying to do. Our bread and butter is sound public policy, but more and more of our work is actually being done with our companies in an attempt to link and leverage the efforts to provide opportunities to individuals on the ground. That no one company should be trying to solve common problems unto themselves. We'll never get to scale if we do this work independently. BRT CEOs are working together to have an impact at scale on some of our most challenging workforce issues facing corporations in this nation today. That said, we also have an opportunity to have even greater impact as states and businesses begin the implementation of recent bipartisan legislation, including the CHIPS Act. Today's launch would not be possible without the leadership of Donald Allan and Julie Sweet, the CEO of Accenture, who's unable to join us today, but co-led one of our original sites in Chicago, focused on apprenticeships, and really helped inform the recent launch of the BRT's Apprenticeship Accelerator. What's so impressive to me about being here today is that Connecticut is one of the few places that I've been to. And I've worked for governors for a very long time before I came to the Business Roundtable. But Connecticut is, in my eyes, one of those places, and sometimes when you're small, you can actually get a lot more done. And I think the opportunities that you have based on the ecosystem, not a word I'm fond of, but I'm using it, but building an ecosystem where business, government, nonprofits, education are all working together. And to me, that's so critical that you're building an infrastructure that's going to be sustainable regardless of who's in office and how long they're in office. Before I close, I want to thank the Business Higher Education Forum, who has served as our implementation partner in Connecticut and the other 8 regions that we currently have efforts underway. As mentioned earlier, we would not be here today if it weren't for the commitment of Don Allan, the CEO of Stanley Black Decker. It's clear to me from meeting with Don early in his tenure that addressing the workforce challenges in Connecticut is a personal passion. And it's that passion that I'm convinced will build on the success that we've already seen in this state. With that, please join me in welcoming Don to the stage.
Am I shorter than Dane? I guess so. Well, one, thank you, Dane. I mean, I really appreciate the very kind introduction. And I also want to thank you for the ongoing support from the Business Roundtable. And it really does represent some outstanding companies and very effective CEOs. And to hear BRT recognize Connecticut's workforce ecosystem, I know you don't like that word, and the success that we've had and the acknowledgement of that is really wonderful to hear. Because it is something that we, as residents of the state of Connecticut, should really be proud of. I've been in Connecticut pretty much my whole life. I was born in Hartford Hospital, and I've lived here in various towns, and I've kind of circled Hartford my whole life. And started in Windsor, worked at West Hartford, Weathersfield, Rocky Hill, and now I'm in Glastonbury. And I really do love this state. There's so many wonderful things about Connecticut. For two years of my life, I lived out of the country. And that was a wonderful experience. Actually, it was almost 3 years. It was a wonderful experience. But coming back to Connecticut after that reminded me of the amazing attributes this state has that range so many different things, from the beauty of the state, the companies that are in this state, the intelligence of the people in this state, the opportunities that we've created. It really is wonderful. And to be standing here today and talking about this particular initiative really energizes me. It really makes me feel proud about what all of us are creating in the state of Connecticut. So before I get into a few more comments, I want to thank a couple people, because this doesn't happen because of one person. This happens because of a variety of different individuals in various leadership roles that actually are able to pull this off. And so I want to start with my friend Julie Sweet, who could not be here today. I met Julie, I think, about 7-8 years ago, and she's been a very good friend, a good mentor, and a great colleague to work with on a variety of different things. And I remember talking to her about 1.5 years ago, and she was like checking in to see how I was doing, and she said, "Are you think you're going to become CEO of Stanley Black Decker?" And I said, "Nah, Jim Lurie's never going to leave. Jim loves it. He's just got so much passion for our company, and that's okay. I'll figure out what I do next." And here I am standing here today. So you never know what's going to happen. But I thank her for partnering with me on this. It's a fantastic partnership, and she's just such a great person. I also want to thank Mayor Bronin. I know he's not here yet, but he'll be here later for his support. Kelly Valeras, who you'll hear from later. Governor Lamont and his team. You know, the governor has done some amazing things to continue to invest in this space. The Business Higher Education Forum, led by Brian Fitzgerald. And then we have someone from Accenture that you'll hear from later, Ryan Oakes, who's been a big advocate as well for what we're trying to do. Over the past several years, all of you have provided amazing leadership, commitment, and collaboration to make this moment possible. All of you are playing a role in being here today, in participating and frankly, putting Connecticut on the forefront of workforce development. We have done some amazing efforts, as you know, and you'll hear more about that today. And it is a great example for the rest of this country. The power of the partnerships is a function of broad-based engagement, participation, and inclusion of all different stakeholders. This effort is in alignment and coordination with all our workforce strategies. It is designed to create more opportunities for our citizens and to close the wealth gap in an inclusive manner by having the private sector join forces with the state government, education, and the nonprofit sector. That particular statement I just said means a lot to me. We all work together to make this state special. The government can't do it alone, higher education can't do it alone, nonprofits can't do it alone, and corporations can't do it alone. All four of us as organizations need to work together to continue to make this an amazing state that it is. Today we are launching what is called a Workplace Partnership Initiative, or the acronym WPI. The Workforce Partnership Initiative, which is BRT's only statewide recognized initiative, is building upon an already robust, ecosystem in Connecticut. I actually don't like the word either, but I've already used it 3 times. Over 4 years ago, one of Governor Lamont's first actions was to create a comprehensive, inclusive, and scaled strategy for workforce development in Connecticut. This plan, activated by the Governor's Workforce Council and implemented by the Office of Workforce Strategy, includes stakeholders in business, industry, education, government, and nonprofits, as I mentioned. Governor Lamont understood what all of us agree with. Workforce development is not only an important business priority, but it is the significant driver of economic development and community development. An inclusive plan that helps serve and activates all of Connecticut's citizens makes our state a great place to work, live, and play. We believe that partnerships are the best way to advance success, as I mentioned. Businesses and industry can be great conveners of these partnerships, but it takes all the stakeholders to really drive the scale of workforce development to get the outcomes that we're looking for. We believe that this initiative between private sector CEOs and the state will build upon the existing robust activities that are already in place. This initiative is designed to accelerate, scale, and sustain the existing efforts. The recent release of the STEM Jobs Report by the Connecticut Department of Labor and DECD, shows that STEM jobs are booming in Connecticut. The report projects 18,000 new jobs by 2030. These are high growth, good paying, full-time jobs with benefits. As Chris Pentima of CBIA says, if STEM succeeds, Connecticut succeeds. We want to get more large companies engaged deeper into our I can't believe this word's here again, ecosystem. You never know when you write these things if you know how many times you use the word ecosystem, I guess. To help scale our existing efforts in digital skilling, the Tech Talent Accelerator, and the regional sector partnerships. We need more STEM degrees to keep up with not only the existing openings, but continuously to grow for future demand. Only through scale can we accelerate our efforts. And with the full participation from the business community and BRT members, we can sustain this workforce development ecosystem far into the future. Much has been done so far, and we should really be proud. But so much more can be done to accelerate, scale, and sustain our efforts. This WPI initiative provides a scale for Connecticut's existing workforce development programs, which are currently being driven by multiple stakeholders inside and outside of this particular room. We want to help amplify these programs. From this commitment and engagement, Connecticut will stand in a better position to attract grants, people, and other resources to amplify the impact of these programs. It will also create scale. Ultimately, a more competitive workforce will attract more businesses and investment into the state, increasing opportunity and making the state more attractive for people to live, work, and play. There is a lack of enough talent in Connecticut. Currently, Connecticut is not producing enough tech talent-related degrees or credentials to meet the demands of our businesses. This program will help change that. And there's always more work on making our workforce diverse and inclusive. And we have to focus on that and ensure the program will help with that change. These changes, again, come from your participation, your collaboration, and your commitment to hire through this program. Recognizing the challenges we have in Connecticut with tech talent, we decided to get involved through active engagement in the Governor's Workforce Council and leveraging the partnerships excuse me, that we have with Business Higher Education Forum. Through that work, we have engaged regularly with Kelly Valeras, the state's chief workforce officer, who understands the importance of the workforce initiative in our state and in our country. I credit Governor Lamont for creating this position. It's proven to be a critical piece in the development of this program so far to date. Kelly has been great. She's been a partner in pulling together all the players in the state. Kelly leads the Office of Workforce Strategy after being the CEO of a manufacturing company in Connecticut, which I just found out she still owns. She's just not involved in running it today. We appreciate the partnership and your leadership, Kelly. Thank you very much, and I'd like to bring you up to the stage. Thank you, Kelly.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is really amazing to stand here today and see the scale of the work that we've been doing at the Office of Workforce Strategy as a result of the Governor's Workforce Strategic Plan. 2.5 years ago, when I took on this job, I was handed a laptop and sent home and said, have fun. And that's how it kind of all started with our office. I worked as an industry partner to build the strategic plan as the vice chair of the Governor's Workforce Council after having spent about 10 years prior working with many of you in this room, especially our educational partners in CSCU, on building out talent pipeline programs to meet the needs of the manufacturers in the state of Connecticut. And as a small manufacturer, I understood very quickly that I alone could not partake on this journey and make any effective change for what we needed in the workforce development system. So I was fortunate enough to meet a wonderful man, Ray Combs, from Westminster Tool. And thank you, Tony. I see you nodding there. And Tony was someone I knew early on as well. And we, together with another group of small manufacturers, started the Eastern Advanced Manufacturing Alliance. And we quickly partnered with the Eastern Workforce Investment Board and 2 of our community colleges, Three Rivers and Quinebaug Valley. And it was through that partnership that we were really able to develop programming and bring that to scale that met not only the needs of one business, but all of the manufacturing businesses in the region. And how I started was going around and talking to all of the different manufacturers, whether they were EMA members or not, anchored by electric boat, what does not hurt to have a large anchor in your region. And we started to understand what are the things that we all have in common. What is the entry-level position skill set that is necessary? And we determined a list of, technical skills, but also included in that was really the foundational professional learning and cognitive skills that were required. My manufacturing friends would always say, if you can send someone to me that has the it factor, I can teach them all the technology that is necessary. But defining what is the it factor was really where I was able to bring in the work that I had done in my PhD program around adult experiential learning and start to really define what were those cognitive skills, effective communication, agency, problem solving, effective communication that were necessary for someone to be really successful in their role. And through that work and over those years, we were fortunate enough to get a large grant, and we started the Manufacturing Pipeline Initiative. Today, that initiative has trained over 2,000 people. We complete over 95% of the people that engage in that program, and almost 90% of those people are placed in jobs. And these are jobs that are careers, really. We look at them being as an upward mobility and having that ability to grow and scale and have stackable credentials to go along with that, right? So we were building a pipeline, and we were building non-credit programs that stacked to credit programs, that stacked to degreed programs, whether they were associate degrees, all the way up through master's programs. So we were so excited about that work, and I think that work is kind of where my passion is. And I always ran my business to the point where it didn't need me on the day-to-day operations, and so it allowed me to kind of spend a lot of time in this space, and then having the opportunity to sit on the Governor's Workforce Council was just very exciting to me. And so when the opportunity to lead this work on a statewide basis came along, I really couldn't pass up that opportunity. And so I'm just really excited about what I learned as a small manufacturer working with a big corporation and with our key partners, right? As it's been said over and over, I think, and you're going to continue to hear the theme here, is that it is an ecosystem, and it is really driven by the partnership, right? And without the partnership of being business-led, working with our educational institutions to help them understand what we need when we need, and to build out the systems in place so that not only are we developing a program for today, but we're developing a system that will continue to be able to keep up with the pace of change of business, right? And that's really critically important, because we can look at many programs in the past and say, well, that was a business-driven program, but then business goes away and the program lives on, and businesses don't need the program anymore. And then we really need our economic drivers in our workforce partners. So bringing in the workforce boards, which is the workforce system across the state set up by the Federal Department of Labor through WPI legislation. That brings in almost $35 million a year annually to Connecticut in our workforce system. And it's important that we've partnered with all of them. And then the Governor's Workforce Council is actually the state workforce board. So we have that connectivity to those partnerships there. And then bringing in our community-based organizations and our economic drivers are really just the recipe to success in building out the program that we're here. And so over the last 2.5 years, I think we've made a lot of really important investments in time and energy, pulling these stakeholder groups together and then being able to have some really significant wins that have helped us really get that flywheel rolling. And I'm so excited today because we're all sitting here today because of all of our collective efforts. It's not just one organization or one person, but it's collectively, how do we break down the barriers of our institutions, and how do we work together to build something bigger than any of us can build on our own? And that's really where the excitement comes into this work. And today we have the ability to really drive the strategic plan through the through operationalizing some of our large investments. So Governor Lamont and our General Assembly approved $70 million for Career Connect. We've made an investment into 14 different organizations, the 5 regional workforce boards, 14 community colleges, 14 community-based organizations, with the community college being the major program providers. All of these programs are driven by demand. All of you sitting at the table telling us what you need when you need it. You're even helping us drive when the schedule of these classes are coming online so that you get just in time what you need. And we're really breaking down that barrier for people to have to be coming into one place. We have a virtual front door. There's no wrong door, a virtual front door. And we're connecting them to the programming that is of their interests and skills. We're providing a full suite of wraparound services: childcare, transportation, food, housing, access to technology, stipends. Anything someone needs to be successful in taking and completing these programs are put in place. Case management. The community college system is putting in academic coaches, right? Everything that we can do to make sure that people are successful, and then bringing in businesses at the beginning of this process, bringing them into the classroom, introducing them to the students, providing opportunities for them to get to know the students and provide conditional offers of employment upon completion, so that that gap between completion of a training program and starting of a job is days or weeks, not months or years, right? So we're really super excited about that, and that has kind of built out a framework for us to then be recognized by the EDA. And our friends are here today, so thank you, Frank and Lauren, for making the trip from DC today to visit us today. The state of Connecticut, out of 509 applications, were one of 32 awardees. And we received the largest grant amount of any of those awardees at $23.9 million. Now, why they couldn't have just thrown in the extra $100,000 and made it a cool 24, it would be a lot easier to talk about. But we are super excited because this money is going to scale the 11 regional sector partnerships that we've created across the state. We have 5 in manufacturing, we have 4 in healthcare, 2 in IT, and 1 in bioscience. And I don't think the math adds up because we had 1 pre-existing in manufacturing. So we're super excited now to have the Business Workforce Roundtable Initiative to come here to Connecticut to understand the work that we've done, be recognized on a federal level with the Good Jobs Challenge funding, and now this honor really goes to show when we work together and we can collaborate together, we really can have amazing things happen. And we have 2 other really amazing programs that we're really proud of that kind of show how we can sustain and accelerate and sustain these programs. So Connecticut CT Health Horizons is a healthcare program that the Office of Workforce Strategy led, but in partnership with our community colleges and our independent college system. And this is really important, right? It's getting our educational institutions to work together and collaborate. And the amount of collaboration between the Healthcare Horizons program and the Tech Talent Accelerator has just been amazing to see that level of collaboration and ensuring that our students have the best education that they need to get these jobs and grow into the future. So we've really made this investment on entry-level positions through Career Connect, And the Good Jobs Challenge and Tech Talent and CT Horizons have really been able to connect us to those associate degrees, bachelor's degrees, and advanced degrees to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of you, right from entry level through professional level positions. So again, thank you all so much today. I started to write a list of everyone that I would like to call out and thank by name today, and it got longer and longer and longer. And the more I wrote, the more I realized that it really is impossible in this short period of time to name everyone who has really been such an amazing partner in this endeavor. But you all know who you are, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And this is why I get up every day and do what I do, because this passion of mine to really continue to scale this work and accelerate it and really sustain, right? We're talking about systems building and changing the way the landscape of how we all work together before versus how we're going to collaborate, cooperate, coordinate, and build a really cohesive workforce system in the future is just very exciting. So thank you. And at this time, I'd like to also introduce a video. Governor Lamont, unfortunately, was not able to be here today. He had a prior commitment that took him out of the state, but he did want to make sure that he had an opportunity to address all of you. So we're going to roll that video now.
I am Ned Lamont, Governor of Connecticut. I want to give a special shout out. Thank you, Business Roundtable, for paying extra special attention to workforce. It is number one on my agenda, number one for every employer, number one for everybody thinking about moving their company to the state of Connecticut. This is what we got to do. We have a statewide workforce program right now, including every single community college, the trades. And what they have done is apprentice programs and intern programs and guaranteed 6,000 jobs. You pass that 18-week certificate program, we guarantee you a job. We're trying to extend that now more in terms of STEM and IT and a variety of other programs. But I want to thank you so much, Roundtable, for making this a priority. First time in my life we have many more jobs. We have people with the skills to fill those jobs. Shame on us if we don't lift everybody up, give them that opportunity, make sure we build those submarines and choppers and F-35s on budget, on schedule. That starts with workforce.
The governor has been amazing in his leadership on workforce development, and I think you could see there his excitement is growing every time we have new opportunities. And with that, I'd like to welcome Dane back up to continue our program.
Thanks, Kelly. I'm going to invite the panel to come up to the stage. And the panel knows we had a list of questions that I was going to ask them. I switched them up. I told them about 5 minutes before we started. And just warning, panel, after hearing Kelly, I may have switched them up again. So. So I really want this, as I spoke with each of you before we started, I really want this to be a dialogue. So we're not just going to go down the line and Dane's going to ask each of you a question. Please, if you have a response, you want to chime in there, please do so. I'm not going to read bios. We'll just make quick introductions. We have Michael Weinstock to my immediate left, the regional president of M&T Bank. We also then have Chancellor, I usually call it Chancellor, President Terrence Cheng with the Connecticut State College and University System, followed by Jennifer Readiness, who's the president of the Connecticut Conference of Independent Colleges, and last but not least, Anderson, who's the Chief Learning Officer at Synchrony. And so I want to start with our business folks. And maybe I'll start with you, Michael. So there's clearly a lot going on in Connecticut. But as an employer, what do you still face what are your biggest challenges in finding the talent you need? And what are you doing to either work with the system, or what investments are you making to try to address the problem given the need? I mean, you look nationally, over 10 million jobs. Some of those numbers are M&T Bank. So what are those challenges, and how are you working with the system, and what are you doing from an investment perspective?
Well, am I on?
You're on.
Okay. So, well, thanks, Dane, for mixing up the questions. So you said that was going to happen, and it obviously did. Let's just, some of the things that we do, let's talk about M&T and some of the things that we do. So we're a new name in the state, but we're an old business in the state, right? And so we honor that commitment. And so we partnered with Goodwin in Bridgeport to drive, first and foremost, a innovation lab with 50 companies running through it. So these 50 companies are small in nature, and they need the tools that Goodwin and the bank can give them through a 7-week program to get to the next level. And frankly speaking, to be, for any bankers in the room, to be all of our customers eventually, right? So we're creating our own environment by helping people to lift up, as was already said. You know, the other things that we've done is we've given children up in, I shouldn't say children, so young adults, an aptitude test in Buffalo. That aptitude test is highly predictive of programming abilities. And so they're now in our tech hub. And so they wouldn't be, right? But we found a way to bring people into an environment who wouldn't be there, which is what we're talking about today, right? Without some guidance, without some, really thinking out of the box, and based upon our need. Buffalo is cold. It's harder than our 68-degree day here with no, we have a good environment here in Connecticut. So it's hard to get those employees up there, and we were able to. So that partnership locally, the thinking out of the box, are some of the things we're doing. We've run 2 career fairs, one last week in Bridgeport, highly successful. People looking for jobs. We've taken people who may not have done something before, and we listen and learn from them, and we're going to train them. So one of the things that we've done is and we've never left this, even though it made us a little bit, at least through the Great Recession and now, we've had training programs and continue to have them. And I would say that's one of the things we should think about and encourage in partnership with the great colleges we have in this state, is how do we continue that?
Let me follow up on this, and then I'm going to come down to you on the end here in a second. But what do work-based learning opportunities look like? And by that I mean internships, apprenticeships, because what we're hearing from many of our members is that we've got to get them the experience sooner. We can't let them go through the 2-year program, the 4-year program, the certificate program, without exposing them to what the application of those knowledge and skills look like before they get to you, so that they don't end up in 6 weeks worth of remediation. So what do work-based learning opportunities look like for M&T Bank?
So that's a big question, right? And so one of the things, I think, what do we get when someone comes in the door? Is that a good way to answer it first? Sure. So what do we get when a college grad or otherwise walks into the door? And so I think you get somebody with a limited amount of skills, right? And unless they've been through some internships, however, you get somebody who's pretty well rounded. And so we can work with that individual, so long as we're an institution that has the ability, right, to train somebody and take the time to do it. Not everybody does. And so it's incumbent upon us to work with our educators to figure that out. And I would say this, I was going to say this later in a different context, but both of our organizations, whether you're on the business side or you're on the education side, are really hard to navigate, right? They're whether it's siloed or it's not, it's just difficult to find the right pathways, and that's something that we're going to get and have to get better at. We have to be able to communicate and not talk to each other just when the need arises. We should be able to talk to each other like we talk to everybody who's a customer, or even trade Netflix shows. Of course, they have to be appropriate, I would say, but.
Thank you. We're gonna give the leaders in higher ed a chance to respond to that here in a minute. But Michael, let me come to you. Biggest challenges?
Well, at Synchrony, what we did was 10 months ago, we opened a $2.5 million reskilling center. Now, this was not for our employees necessarily, it's for the community. And we have sort of 3 areas of emphasis. We have high schoolers, we have community college that we're working with, and then we also have sort of underserved adults. In each of those areas, we're working with very valued partners, which is a lesson we learned, which is go to the experts. We don't have to do this ourselves. And in each of those areas, we're going in and we're training high schoolers on what we call digital life. And I think AM's here. If it's from District Arts and Education here in New Haven. Our community college, we just finished a 3-week internship with Norwalk Community College, where between quarters and semesters, they came in and they learned about the needs that Synchrony do, and they even designed a website for us for this reskilling center. And then the adult program, we're partnering with General Assembly, and we're starting to have 20 folks who are sort of displaced workers, and they're coming in and they're learning software programming. So I give a lot of that credit to our executive chair, Margaret Keene, who has really taken a great interest in this, and then also our current CEO, Brian Doubles.
So George, let me pick up on that point too, because we heard Kelly talk about underserved populations. So it's one thing to bring them in for training. Then there's the array of supports some of these individuals need. Some need childcare, some need transportation, some need housing. How's Synchrony thinking about the support system you provide as well?
Dane, that's something that we underestimated. We just thought, people would show up and take our classes and everybody, what we learned was if you're hungry, you're not necessarily worried about software programming. So we had to, and again, we're reaching out. We got a terrific mayor in Stanford, Caroline Simmons, and she's helping us figure out these wraparound services. Kelly, Valerie's in the Office of Workforce Strategy. I mean, what those folks have done is they've made things easier for me because it's one call. I don't have to call 15 people. But we really have to figure out, first of all, we got food. Then we literally have counselors on call. For example, we had a student coming in who was transitioning genders. In corporate America, we didn't really know how to counsel a high schooler on those types of things. So we are partnering. We sort of understand what we're good at, and then we have to, that's why these partnerships are so valuable. We can't do this ourselves.
Thank you. So Terrence, one of the words that comes to mind as I listened to our 2 individuals from the business community is, I think what they want from higher ed is they want them to be nimble. So based on what you have heard from both George and Michael, how are you responding to some of these challenges? What are the ways in which the system is trying to be more nimble?
Sure, it's an excellent question, and I think there's a kind of there's a confluence of factors coming together right now, and part of it is that higher education, the way it's executed now broadly, is still a kind of a brick and mortar product, so to speak, right? Folks still think of it as a 17 or 18-year-old goes to a campus, lives in a dorm, studies for X number of years, gets a degree, and hopefully walks out and gets a job. That market is very small. It's only about 15 or 17% of the market these days. So who we really should be serving are the quote unquote lifelong learners, right? Folks who are going to be looking for different types of certifications and credentials and training and experience that will keep them moving forward in their careers and their lives for the long term. So what we have to do is essentially recalibrate our current infrastructure, our current delivery models. At the same time, we have to continue to build our knowledge and expertise base, right? So does any of that sound nimble? Yeah. So that's a big part of the challenge, right? It's a big part of the challenge. The other thing that I think we need to do is we have to communicate better, right? We have to listen, we have to be responsive, and we have to have those, as you mentioned before, those open channels of constant communication. So when folks want something, and I'm going to steal something from my friend Marty Guay, who gave me, Marty's like the king of analogies. I don't know if you've learned this about him, but he has a way of saying things that crystallize things so quickly, and I love it. So I owe you a sandwich, Marty. It's the if-then proposition. right? So if a student comes to our institution, then this will happen, right? And we need to create that in higher education. If they come to us, they receive education, they receive training, then we are going to help them do this and that and ultimately land a job. But we have to rebuild all these things because we're so entrenched both philosophically, culturally, and literally physically in the way things have been done in higher education for 100 years. And if we keep doing that, then we're going to be in deep trouble, and we won't actually meet the needs, and we won't actually be responsive.
But Terrence, you're selling yourself short. So Terrence, when he was at UConn Stanford, he was the first Synchrony partner. We did an intern program with them. We've hired 20 people over the last year and a half. I mean, the acquisition costs alone saved us a lot of money. So Terrence is sort of he's selling himself short, but he is on the forefront of how do we meet the needs of business, how do we listen to business, and how do we really form these very agile partnerships.
I think there's such incredible opportunity. The EDA grant, the infrastructure bill, the CHIPS bill. I mean, there's never been, I think, a better opportunity for higher education to address the business community's needs. Which leads me to Jennifer. There are a lot of best practices out there where your institutions are responding to companies' needs. What do those look like? Share with us some of those efforts.
Thanks so much. And, I think some people, first of all, just level set. Like, what are the independent colleges doing here? Somebody joked as I walked in, I think you joked, never really thought about partnering with the privates. And so it's just important to understand the contributions that they make in Connecticut. Our member institutions award almost half the bachelor's degrees earned in here each year, in the state each year, and are significant contributors in computer science and health professions, which is why we're so involved in Connecticut Health Horizons. And we have 10 engineering schools in this state, and 8 of them are at private colleges. So that's why we're at the table for these discussions, and really appreciate the governor allowing us to come to the table, and the partnership with the Office of Workforce Strategy has really meant a lot. And I think part of that kicked off because, before the governor was even elected, he instigated a partnership between Infosys and Trinity College, right? Where Trinity was providing short-term training program after liberal arts graduates got their degree to go and work into tech, a 6-week summer program. And that program continues today. So I would just say that was sort of the stalwart. That's where it all began. And similarly, we have University of St. Joseph, for example. They just launched an upside-down computer science degree where students are getting those key skills that they need up front, enter the workforce, and then finish their bachelor's degree. Another example I just wanted to highlight is University of Hartford. They just built this tremendous new engineering building with support from Stanley Black Decker and others. And it's allowed them to innovate with new programs. They have, this is why I have my notes, because I'm not an engineer and I don't remember all these things, but they have new degree programs in aerospace, robotics, cybersecurity. They have robotics labs, automation lab, mechatronics lab. So I think the challenge for higher ed, to Terrence's point, is how do we, evolve within that bricks and mortar space that we're not really ready to leave behind. But can we evolve in our programs quickly enough to meet the needs of employers? I think that we're really trying hard to do that. But having state funding and state support, a little carrot to bring us along is really helpful.
Yeah. Then how does that interact with the public workforce system?
Exactly.
As well. Let's hear a little bit, George, about the Digital Academy in Stanford as well, as we're on this theme of some promising models, practices.
Yeah, again, we learned a lot with a lot of partners. So we launched with high school and our General Assembly, or our adult program. And the first thing I want to call out is, the workforce development efforts also have to be congruent with your workplace culture. And again, we have had executive chair, Margaret, our CEO, are literally see the value of this. So the first thing that we did, and Jen's going to hate this, is we took degree requirements off of 90% of our jobs. Now, we're not anti-education, Jen. I started GE as an intern, so I get it. But what we were seeing was the degree requirement was a barrier to entry. So what we want to do is eliminate a barrier to entry, bring people in. Then our tuition reimbursement program is $20,000 a year. So let's find people who have an aptitude, Then we will work with them on cultural fit and then the technical stuff, which is things like cybersecurity, software programming. And then we'll work with Jen and her colleges on, hey, we need agile, we need fraud, we need cyber, and we don't need it in a year and a half. And so that's sort of what we're seeing. And by the way, and Connecticut colleges and Terrence and are being really supportive of us.
Jen, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think that model is going to grow, and we want to be strong partners to that. And I think just this week, University of Hartford announced a partnership with Stanley Black Decker, where similarly they're providing scholarship money. They're providing mentorship, they're providing internship opportunities. So these collaborations are really important, not just for the colleges, but for the students, because to your point, like, we need to reach into a demographic that maybe has been forgotten in the past, but that's our future workforce, and we can't do it. We can't provide all these services without help from the business community.
Terrence.
Can I say something? So I just want to I completely agree with everything you said, and I want to take a minute to just kind of lift up what you were saying, George, which is the culture, right? And so we pride ourselves on serving our students to the best of our abilities, but to complete that continuum, or to create as broad a continuum as possible, we need the business community, both for-profit, nonprofit, to step up and help us create that. We can provide the training, we can provide the education, but we can't provide the internships, the apprenticeships. We can't commit to those opportunities at the other end of the side. So I want to lift up the fact that Synchrony, I think, with incredible transparent intentionality, has said point blank, we want this. We want a diverse workforce. We want a workforce that comes from Connecticut. We want these things, and we are going to literally put our money where our mouth is, right? And Accenture is doing the same thing. We have this new relationship at Capital Community College with Accenture, where Ryan did the same exact thing. He said, we are looking to do this. Help us do it. And, I think that is a real, again, it's a cultural and sensibility shift, because for so long we've been in this paradigm where the enrollment was there, the demographics were there, the training was there, and things have changed. And if we're not really intentional, we're really sharp with you all there to help us kind of bring that to full circle, it just won't happen.
Jennifer, and then I'm going to come to you,
I just want to
Michael.
piggyback off that to say, in the past, to Terrence's point, we haven't had to be responsive to business because we had students, right, filling our seats. And now the enrollment declines, the demographic changes in the Northeast are affecting virtually everyone. So we are being forced to revise our business model at the same time when employers are needing, new talent and new degree programs to meet their needs. So it's really, the timing is good, right? That, like, we need you to come to us and tell us what you need, and we'll probably be more responsive higher ed than we've ever been before.
Yeah, that's a whole nother session.
Sorry.
But that's a great discussion. But I want to, Michael, I want to come to you to talk about some of the partnerships with higher education and others. But I want to pick up on a theme that I notice a lot from our CEOs writ large at the BRT. We have an initiative called the Multiple Pathways Initiative, and it's really focused around skills-based hiring. Now, we're not suggesting we should throw the baby out with the bathwater, that it's all about skills, not any credentials. But you see a number of companies who have been reviewing job descriptions because they've realized we're over-speccing some of the jobs in our company. We're hiring individuals who are well overqualified for the jobs, and those positions don't require a bachelor's degree, and in some cases a 2-year degree. So as you think about the evolution of higher ed in an environment where employers are really now saying, we've got to emphasize skills more, and then we'll put individuals in a job, they may not have a degree, they may have an associate's degree, and then the company, M&T Bank, says, we'll help you further your education. We'll work with the local colleges. Talk to me about what that looks like for M&T. And how you collaborate.
I think it was already said, right? I think we're rethinking, right, the past limitations we all put upon ourselves for hiring people, right? And so the marketplace has dictated to that to some degree, because none of us can get what we need, right? And so how do we rethink that? How do we, career fairs brand recognition. There's a lot of things you can do individually, but when we talk about the entire state, right, we want to make sure that we have those opportunities for people who are from all walks of life and whose skill sets that we can build into somebody who can be a viable and somebody who can really help us build our business. I would say that something I heard earlier. I think listening to everybody talk, this is way more complex than we make it out to be, just talking about jobs, because we can educate everybody, but we have to keep them here. And so you heard earlier, live, work, play. That's those three words are huge. And so live, work, play is something that if we try and work on one thing without working on multiple things and forget about how complicated this is, we're going to lose this battle. And if you have a person, an individual who wants to open a restaurant, and they're precluded from opening that restaurant because they can't get the workers to work in that restaurant, which many cities are experiencing, live, work, play starts to fall off. You may have really, really high end, and these are the high end towns we're talking about, right? Affordability, it can be the greatest thing in the world and it can be the worst thing in the world if you don't figure out how to create affordability within those townships. If you don't have a vibrant live, work, play, if you don't have vibrant restaurants, vibrant culture and all of that, we're going to lose these great employees that are all educated here in our fine schools, and they're going to go somewhere else. And we've seen that. I mean, look, we got a bit of a push because of COVID. We need to keep that push coming, right? We had a lot of people go to I-95 between Stanford and Bridgeport, and you'll see we've got a lot of people on the road. So how do we continue that? And I would tell you that it's thinking about how to create an affordable market where people and young people and all people can live and work, and we create those communities that we all want to live in. Otherwise, we could create the best workforce in the world and still be challenged.
I think this retention issue is so critically important. I mean, we've seen it from the McKinsey studies and other studies around the country, whether it's COVID or otherwise. But as a company, Michael, how do y'all think about, what do we do within the company? What are the policies or practices we put in place to try to keep people there? There's the housing, the affordability of living and what have you, but what are the strategies M&T has used to try to keep people?
So that's a 2-hour answer to your question, but really culture is the most important thing you could have. Diversity. I mean, just a plug for M&T, we have 80 diversity groups in the bank. We have 15 chapters. If you show people that you're part of the community, right, that we reflect the community, and that we serve the community, no matter who we are, that is where people will look at you and say, I want to be there and I want to stay there. And the mighty dollar, we can fight over a dollar for every employee we want. That's not the fight. The fight is, do you have an organization that is embracing every day when you walk out and you see everybody in your community that embraces and looks like that community? To me, that is where we start, and that's kind of where we finish. So,
Hey, Jen, I think we've already talked about the reason why we need to collaborate, but talk to me a little bit about the Tech Talent Accelerator.
Sure. So the Tech Talent Accelerator is funded by a grant from DECD, and it's helping to facilitate colleges and universities working with businesses to create short-term certificate programs in certain tech areas. And to Michael's point, this work isn't easy. And so this really is, the brainchild from Business Higher Ed Forum, New England Board of Higher Ed, and Marty Guay, honestly, to get folks working together and to show them that it could actually work. And so we have 6 private colleges plus the CSU system working with employers like Infosys, CGI, Electric Boat, Stanley Black Decker, Accenture. The list goes on and to create certificate programs that are responsive to the needs of employers in cyber and other, I don't know, cyber mostly. But what's really important about this, to Michael's point though, is that the work of the Business Higher Ed Forum in NEBI, they've served as a translator, right? So like you guys, the businesses don't know how to access the higher ed folks that they need to say, here's what I need from you. Obviously you might need a president along the way, a dean or so, but like when you actually need a program to be developed, you don't know who the contact is and who might do that work for you. So the Business Higher Ed Forum has really done amazing work with NEBI to be the translator and to prove that this is successful. And I think there's opportunities now to scale it. Kelly mentioned Connecticut Health Horizons, which provides tuition assistance, faculty support, and funding for innovative programs, and which is requiring business support for those innovative programs. So nursing schools, for example, are having to go to employers and say, what do you need? How can we expand your pipeline for nurses? Let's work together and we'll get a little state money to do it. It would be amazing to do something similar for tech, right? Because we know you need help. We want to help you. And having a little bit of a carrot at a larger scale to ensure where the pipeline expands to meet that DOL jobs STEM report, to to the future that we know we're going to have all these new jobs in STEM. We know we need to start producing them now. Something like a Connecticut Tech Horizons would be great to sort of scale the tech talent accelerator at a much larger level.
Can I add real quick? So I completely agree. I'm going to take your carrot analogy and amplify that. I think we need more than a carrot, or we need like a carrot on steroids, or something. We need a lot. We need more, because I think one of the things that we unfortunately, from a society standpoint, oversimplify is like, well, if the students are there or the people are there and the jobs are there, we should add 1 + 1 and it should be 2. And we know that that's not the case. And I'll tell you, part of that gray area for higher education, I think, and I think you would agree with me, is that our infrastructure is built a certain way, and there are sunken costs that don't allow us to be fluid or nimble with the kind of appropriation of those resources into particular areas. We don't have infrastructure at our fingertips that we can automatically kind of pull the lever on and have something happen, right? So I think it's incumbent upon us in higher education to build that new infrastructure while understanding that the infrastructures that we have been working with for a long time still have value. There will be intersectionality in that work, but ultimately we are building a new machine for a new kind of race, and I think that race has really kind of surprised us in a lot of ways. I feel like, at least in my time, I feel like we went from the get an associate's to a bachelor's to a master's and live a great life. And all of a sudden we have President Biden who, listen, I love and support, but he's yelling during the State of the Union address that there are jobs out there that don't need a college degree. And I was like, what are you doing? Don't do that. Don't say that, because that hurts the perception of the value of an education. And that, I think, has long-term damage if we continue to lean into this idea that you can live a certain way without education. All the statistics and all the research still show that the pathway to that kind of American dream, life-sustaining, way of doing things is still through education. So sorry to get on my soapbox about that, and I'm sure President Biden will call me later and yell at me. That's fine, but I just I felt.
Well, Dane, I was just thinking, and I know we're about to wrap up. In a nutshell, at least from an industry standpoint, industry is used to seeing a problem, getting a bunch of people in a room together, giving them a budget, calling it a work stream, and solving the problem. And what makes this so hard is that doesn't work in this situation, that we have to have these partnerships. We have to have this cannot be an initiative of the day. It's got to be sustainable, and all the stuff Michael was talking about in terms of affordable living, in that kind of. So the partnerships, which frankly externally sometimes don't happen naturally. And as somebody was pointing out, sort of the reward systems, the processes, the procedures aren't necessarily built for that. So that's really why it makes it tough. I also want to make a comment about diversity. We had a gentleman who, a majority male, over 50, lost his job during the pandemic, could not find a job. He came to our software programming class, 3 months, got out, and Infosys hired him. And so you saw someone who was over 50, majority male, couldn't find a job, and this workforce development helped him as well. So we look at it in diversity in all its forms. And then the last thing I want to say is, because I'm feeling left out, I am also a member of the Marty Guay fan club.
I think what's so exciting about the partnerships, partnerships, for those of us that have been around for a while, and I think we're mostly a very mature audience, that we have had partnerships. I call them the boutique initiatives. Here today, gone in a couple of years. I think what's particularly exciting now are the partnerships that are happening, not just with individual companies, but a collection of companies, and saying, what do we do at scale? How do we build something that can last and can change depending on individual needs and company needs? Now, I'm going to break one of the rules. I wasn't supposed to turn to the audience, but no one has given me the high five, cut it short. So you just have to talk loud and just raise your hand and ask your question. I'm already at time. Okay, well, false alarm, you're not going to get to ask a question. So let's do a quick lightning round. What's the one thing you'd want to see happen in Connecticut in the next couple of years to address some of the challenges that we've talked about in this meeting today? Jen, start with you.
More financial aid.
Michael? George?
We got to get faster. We got to get faster, and that includes Synchrony.
Michael?
Too many, but sometimes subsidizing workers and renters directly, which is not commonplace. It's an interesting thought process. So.
And Terrence?
I want to see us align our rhetoric with our investments, because I think we talk a lot about the value of education and the value of training a great workforce, but from whichever side it might be, some of it's internal to our system, some of it's internal or external to the system, but I don't think we're always walking the walk. We talk real good around here, but we don't always walk that walk.
Please join me in thanking our panel. And I'd now like to invite Ryan Oakes with Accenture to come to the stage. Ryan?
Good afternoon. So I feel like I'm supposed to pay homage to you or something, Marty. So I'm going to work my way to get that into the mix. And Don dared me to use ecosystem 27 times, just so we're all clear. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about the importance of Workforce Partnership Initiative in the state of Connecticut. In the digital age, technology continues to play an increasingly significant role in our daily lives and in our economy. Connecticut is home to a thriving technology industry that employs thousands of residents. However, to maintain its competitiveness and continue to attract business to the state, it's essential that we focus on developing a workforce that can meet the accelerating pace of technology innovation across virtually every industry. One of the most critical components of workforce development is education. Connecticut is home to many excellent universities and colleges, and we must work together to ensure that these institutions are preparing students for the technology jobs of the future. This means providing students with the skills and knowledge necessary to succeed in fields like software development, data science, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity. Workforce development is essential to the future of our state. By investing in education, providing opportunities for adult workers to upgrade their skills, and creating a supportive environment for technology companies, we can ensure that Connecticut remains a leader. Now, I have a confession to make. Everything I've just said was written in 30 seconds by what's known as a generative AI program yesterday. Okay. So we've all heard about ChatGPT, and some of you in the room have played with it. The reason that I chose to start my comments with that is to really emphasize what is happening with the pace of technological change around all of us and how it impacts everyone. So now onto the human part of the discussion. I wrote this part. So first, a huge thank you to everyone that made today possible. Being here has obviously been incredibly inspiring, and we're ready to take action. I think one of the things that I kept thinking as I was sitting in my seat, two words just kept coming to me: speed and scale, speed and scale. Okay, and one of the things that I'll comment on as I talk a little bit more is how unique Connecticut is in the way that business, education, the nonprofit community, and the government come together at speed to put together a plan that can be scaled, not just is something nice to talk about and to be able to say we helped 5 people or 10 people. I am shorter, so I have to pull it down a little. First, so the Business Roundtable, thank you, has been a driving force in bringing together organizations and local leaders to align in the goal of creating a stronger Connecticut workforce. So a huge thank you to Dane. As Don shared earlier, by being here today, you're all taking that first step toward achieving our goal. Many of you obviously have taken steps prior to today. I'm proud to represent Accenture and our global CEO, Julie Sweet, to launch the Workforce Partnership with Business Roundtable, Stanley Black Decker, Business Higher Education Forum, and Connecticut's Governor's Workforce Council. That's a mouthful. Together, we can achieve our goal to create, I'm going to add, at least 1,500 high-tech digital jobs by December of 2025 and unlock the incredible talent potential that exists in our state. It's critical now, more than ever, for us to come together and create opportunities for residents in Connecticut. Personally, I've been in Connecticut for my adult life. I am an independent college product. Go Camels. Connecticut College in New London, if you're not sure. And I've lived here for almost 30 years as my adult life. I'm absolutely convinced that we have the combination of leaders and focus to execute this again at speed and scale. Today, every business leader in Connecticut and across the country are thinking about what the future of their workforce is going to look like. Technology is transforming the way we work, we operate, and we interact, and it's forcing us to rethink and reimagine skills and talent and what we are going to need to be competitive across the globe. With all of these factors in mind, at Accenture, we also believe it is the diversity of our people that actually drives the innovation. This is a business imperative for us. Therefore, we've taken a unique approach to hiring. We've been developing the workforce of the future through various programs like our apprentice models, our internships, our Skills to Succeed, corporate citizenship programs to access untapped and underserved communities. Since over the last 4 or 5 years, our apprentice program has engaged more than 2,000 apprentices across 40 cities in the U.S. Nearly 20% of our entry-level hires are now through apprentice programs. As Terrence mentioned, our newest partner right here, right down the street at Capital Community College, we just launched 2 weeks ago our first cohort, which is a earn-as-you-go model. So these are employees of Accenture who are also students of Capital Community College. They are being paid a good living wage to learn and grow and be a part of our community. These individuals will be put into high-tech roles, serving many of our clients, who I'm proud to say are in this room. Many of our business clients are here today, so thank you. And then that will allow us to bring in the next cohort and the next cohort and the next cohort. I ask all of you here today to think about the impact that you can make. Every step matters, and every action that you take will help us to achieve, and what I expect is to exceed our goal. Let's do our part and take action. Many of you are doing work in this area, and we are all aiming for the same goals. In the event that we don't know of your work, we want to link and we want to leverage. To achieve scale, we have to work together. We're ready to share our playbook. We're ready to share what we've learned, what we've seen, and what works for us, and we are ready to listen and learn from you so that together we can develop Connecticut's workforce. At this point, I think he is here. Okay. I would like to, it's my honor, to invite Hartford Mayor Luke Bronin up to the stage to make a few comments.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is great to see this auditorium packed, and I want to just start by saying thank you so much to the Connecticut Science Center for hosting. This is a part of the workforce development strategy by starting early and showing young people what's possible. And I also want to just say a huge thank you to the Business Roundtable and to Kelly Valieris and the entire Lamont administration, plus the Connecticut Workforce Council for focusing on this issue and for doing it in partnership with private sector and with institutions. I won't talk for long because I know you've gone through an afternoon of conversation, and I hope you forgive me for missing it. I'm going to say a couple things which I say at the risk of repeating some of the things which were said earlier. But the first is that I think we all know we can be successful in this because we have amazing talent in this state, and we've got amazing companies that are offering job opportunities that will lead to incredibly fulfilling, meaningful careers in industries that are on the cutting edge, doing some of the most amazing work that any companies are doing anywhere in the world. So we can do this, but we're only going to be successful at it if we are doing this all in partnership. And so just looking out at this audience and seeing so many of our great companies represented, so many of our educational institutions, both public and private, represented, and with the state and city governments working side by side, I think we can do it. But I think it's worth talking about a couple of things. First, we just heard about the Accenture partnership. I love that Accenture partnership because it's a partnership with a community college. And I think it's important that as we do this work of workforce development, we have to sometimes break out of old assumptions about what level of formal education you need to be successful in that particular job and in those particular careers. And we've got an extraordinary community college system in this state. And Capital is a great example of it here in Hartford. Amazingly talented young people who, in different circumstances, growing up in different places, would have gone on to the best colleges anywhere in the country. But they are pushing themselves forward at Capital, and they could add enormous amounts to your company. But it's going to take a little bit more creativity, a little bit more work to make sure that they see that path to that career at your company, and that you build a pipeline that is preparing those young people for the jobs that you've got. So I know, there's so many companies that are already doing that. I love also, I'm so grateful for the work that Stanley is doing, and that work nationally of promoting makers and supporting them as they do it. But this point that you have to think differently about who will be successful in these jobs, broaden the aperture, broaden the appetite, proactively reach out, and then very deliberately build those programs. And I think the other point is to make it successful. In many cases, you do have to get back to that apprenticeship model. You do have to make it possible for a young person to earn while they're learning, because otherwise we're closing out so many incredible talented people who would do it if they could, but they can't. And it's not just going to be a loss for them, but a loss for you and your company. So I'll stop there, but just to say that as a city, we are eager to partner with anybody here to do this. We're really thankful for the partnerships we've built with Capital Community College. Really thankful for the work that Trinity College is doing and preparing in partnership with Infosys, for example. We have so many good examples, and I go down the road dangerously because every educational institution here is working with employers to do this. But we've got to still be more aggressive, and we have to make sure that employers are laying out specifically the skills that they need, designing programs in partnership, not just waiting for people to show up at their door with certain credentials, and then making it possible for those who need to be able to earn to make that journey successful to do it. So I'll stop there, but thank you so much again to everybody who's here. Thank you again, Business Roundtable, to Connecticut Workforce Strategy Board, to everybody who's a part of that, and especially, in that lead, I know Stanley Black Decker has played such a central role in that work. I want to say thank you to Stanley and thank you to Accenture as well, but to every company, every educational institution who's here. Good to be with you, and look forward to the reception to follow. Thanks, everybody.
That concludes the program. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon, and we invite you to join us outside for the reception. Thank you again.